I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Madam Luke's. My name is Sim. Along with me is my fellow co-host, Sheikh Amir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mort will be in a little bit later, but before we get started, help us out on patreon.com/the Madam Luke's. Every little bit helps, and we are entirely supported by you, so please do what you can. And as always, make sure you like, subscribe, and throw a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to today's show. Sheikh Amir, welcome. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
Any news to report?
No news to report.
You do have news to report. MashaAllah, you got a new home.
Oh, yes, alhamdulillah. Oh, yeah. My childhood home, I basically moved back into my childhood home.
Yeah.
Kind of like a dream of mine, so alhamdulillah, it happened. It is what it is. Life goes on.
And just letting the listeners
An hour
know
of happiness.
that we had a little break
Yes.
after a lot of shows just because it's Sheikh Amir.
Just because.
Yeah,
I see what's happening now.
I mean, we got to know that they have to know that we're not slacking,
Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yeah.
Their hard-earned contributions are keeping the show moving, you know, but sometimes life comes in the way, and
Yes, it does.
Sheikh Amir is
Sheikh
moving
Amir's
on out.
Steals the show sometimes and has to move.
Yeah. Mubarak. And,
Thank you. Inshallah, out of the
inshallah.
renting life for a while now, inshallah.
Allah make it a means
Ameen.
for increasing your chances to go to Jannah.
I mean, wow, what a guy. Nice spin. I like this.
What a dua, right?
Yes, I mean.
All right. Our guest today is a gentleman out of the UK. He is a fitness coach, life mentor, mashallah, a really talented individual who has a lot of, I just find him a really entertaining guy. And when I read his posts and stuff like that, I'm like, I vibe with this guy. He's in your face. He tells it like it is. Please welcome the one and only Adam Kaan. Welcome to the show.
Assalamu
Walaikum
alaikum.
salam.
Pleasure to be here, finally.
Adam Kaan.
How you doing, brother? What part of the UK are you from?
Manchester.
Wow, Manchester. I haven't been there. I gotta go there sometime. The UK is so fun, man. It's like we have a small section of the UK, what I think in Chicago, just a small intersect. And when you go over there and you see the way that Muslim communities have kind of gotten established over there over several decades, it's mind-blowing. I always encourage people in Chicago who think that Chicago is all that. I'm like, wait till you go to the UK.
I've never been.
Yeah.
I've never been.
It's mind-bending. I've never imagined that many Muslims in one city, like a modern city. You're like, oh my God, these white nationalists actually have a, you know.
And the reason, no wonder why they're so angry.
No wonder they're so angry. I kind of get it. But, I mean, it's only like that in certain areas of the UK. It's majority of them is still primarily white British people, I think.
Yeah.
I think some of their claims are a little overblown.
You know, I remember before the show you were,
I think they're 8%, right?
is it 8% of
How
UK's Muslims?
It's less. I think it's about 5%.
Oh, 5%?
That's still a
I
lot.
recall correctly.
That's
I
still a
think
lot
it's
for
about 5%.
70 million population, I think it is altogether.
Yeah. 5% is
But
That's
it's,
pretty
it's a decent amount, but
yeah.
it's not like the way that the white nationalists kind of make it out to be. But they're kind of talking about immigration in general too. The Tommy Robinson type people who hate the Muslims, they're okay with regular people, right? But how much does that affect you? We're in Manchester when like all that race riot stuff.
no, you don't see it in real life. It's all online. When you come online, you think, my God, everybody must hate us.
Yeah.
But honestly, they, in day-to-day life, you don't experience it. So near where I live, it's a predominantly white population, right? So there's a thing in the UK called the Park Run, and I started going there a couple of weeks ago in my locality. and I think it was only me, and there was one other Muslim female, and everybody was very friendly. In fact, it felt like that they were going out of their way to be welcoming and make me feel welcome.
Mm.
So you don't experience what you see online, but when you come online, it is scary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially Twitter.
Yeah. A lot of people live on
I
Twitter,
don't
so it can seem
I don't
like
spend
that.
much time on Twitter, but everywhere else. Having said that, have you seen? I saw an article today, and you, my guys might be aware of it. You've seen one of the main donors of Reform UK, the most anti-Muslim party, anti-immigration, anti-Muslim party in the UK, is being bankrolled by a Muslim.
What?
What?
Exactly, it's crazy, right?
Why?
Crazy.
Money talks.
Is there a reason why? Like, is it politics or?
I spent the last hour before the show trying to understand his motive, and I couldn't find anything. Um, and no, I really can't understand it.
That's wild.
There's got to be some decent amount of money and power involved. There'd be no other way.
Well, he's a very rich man. He had some business that he sold for 235 million, and out of that, he made an estimated 31 million.
Yeah. Wow.
And before that, he was a part of the Conservative Party. So I think really it's when you do these things, you doors open up to you, right?
Yeah.
Certain doors open up to you that you would never open up, and I think it's an easy way to get them doors to open, and so people sell out.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with open doors. You're right. Hopefully, it's not the situation with him, but sometimes people are compromised, and their influence is used once they can be compromised. But other than that, you were saying also that some people find you controversial. Before we get into all the fitness stuff, I'm actually really curious about this because a lot of people who are in the fitness industry, they try to be non-controversial whatsoever. And they just try to not talk about politics, not talk about anything that can ruffle any feathers, and almost seem like they're oblivious online to anything that's happening. What makes you controversial, or why do people find you controversial?
I speak my mind. I think it may be a part of my ADHD. I recently looked into it, and I'm pretty well. In fact, I did a little assessment with my doctors, and I ticked every single box for ADHD, literally on like a 30 question questionnaire. I think it may be something to do with that I don't have many filters, right? So whatever's on my mind, I'll just say it, right? And like today, I was going to put a post up earlier, like, don't snack, right? Snacking is for cows. Right? And like, so people wouldn't say that, and I'll just say it, right?
Okay.
And
So
if
there's
you
some
ask me why I say snacking,
You'll-
is for cows, like,
Yeah,
so there's some comedy involved in some of this. I like it. That's cool.
yeah, some comedy sometimes. Sometimes I say things and there's no malice really. And look, here's the thing, right? You have to feel a level of discomfort before you before you're motivated to take action, right? Your level of discomfort has to be so great that the discomfort has changed. So your current state, the level of discomfort has to be greater than the discomfort of change, right? For you to feel motivated to change. And so I inadvertently try and increase that level of discomfort so that you feel, it's by design. You feel uncomfortable, and then you swear at me and you say all sorts of curses at me, but then 2 days later you think about it and think, okay, maybe he has a point, and maybe I do need to do something, and you take action. And this has happened to me numerous times where people have said to me, they've messaged me and said, you know what, that wasn't nice, or that was nasty, and who do you think you are? And then a week later, how do I join your program? Or a month later, bro, when I first read that post, I was really angry, and I called you all sorts of expletives, but since then I've lost a stone. So that's the purpose behind it. There's no real malice involved.
Yeah, discomfort is the biggest bringer of change. I think that's
Hey,
what it is.
what's a stone?
Stone is 12 pounds. I
Oh,
think
12 pounds.
6 kilos, right?
Yeah, it's about it's 6 kgs. And
6
a
kg. What is that? Like 12 pounds? Nice.
So,
About 13. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, how about you get started in telling us how you got into this whole scene of wellness coaching, weight loss coaching, and stuff like that?
So, if we go right back to the start, when I was about 8 years old, my dad had a heart attack, and that was my first kind of awareness of health. And then when I was 14, my dad had a stroke, and he became paralyzed, and he needed full-time 24/7 care until he passed away in 2002. So I witnessed that, this whole issue of health in our community. And then I fell really ill as well with tuberculosis. And from the age of 15, and it deteriorated until about 19 and a half. And I'm not going to get into all the details of all the things that happened in between that have also shaped me, shaped my beliefs and opinions on a lot of things. But 19 and a half, they finally diagnosed it as TB. And I recovered from that. And when I first recovered, I started gaining weight, because until the age of 19 and a half, I was like 7 stones. And so really underweight. So when I recovered from TB, I started gaining weight. Initially, it was seen as a good thing. But then after about a couple of years, I'd become my heaviest. And again, for most people in this day and age, it may have not been considered heavy, but for somebody who's been 7 stones, going to 13 stones is quite heavy. And one day I was going to work, and I decided I'm going to jog. And I realized that I was heavy. I couldn't jog. And my legs felt really heavy. I just felt really heavy and unable to move almost. And that's when it kind of hit me that when I was really ill, I kind of made a promise to myself and to God, because I didn't think I would ever get better. And the doctors had almost given up as well, because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, why my health was deteriorating. I had TB in the bone of the skull, which is a really very rare occurrence of TB. Normally you get it in the chest. And to this day, I have the kind of effects of that. Some of the bones in my neck are damaged, and I can't turn my head. And if you look clearly, you'll notice that my head is slightly off center. So that's because of the bone damage in my neck to the bones and the misalignment. And now, so during that time, I kind of made a promise that I would take care of my health if I ever got better. And I got better, and here I was, overweight and not taking care of my health. And I had another friend who was into the gym and training, and he tried for like a year to get me into the gym, and I'd keep making excuses. And one of the excuses that I would make, and I get many of the excuses now, is that I'm too busy training my mind, because I was going to fiqh classes, Arabic classes, and so many other classes, but nothing for my health. And I'd say, so I'm busy growing my mind instead of my muscles. But then after this incident where I felt heavy and I felt kind of guilty and ashamed, I decided to heed his call. I went to the gym. I did all the crazy stuff that people do, cut everything out, sugar, carbs. At that time, it was called Atkins. And I trained for like 4 hours a day. And that's no exaggeration. It was about 3 to 4 hours a day. I was at university. I was training literally about 3 to 4 hours a day. 5, sometimes 6, and even 7 days a week. And within about 2 or 3 months, I'd lost everything, all the excess weight. But then I got married, got a job, and I gained all the weight back again. Within the space of a year, I'd lost the weight and gained it back. And then from then on, for the next 10 years, I was on this cycle of yo-yo dieting, never really getting back to my initial, getting lean. I was going from fat to fatter, and then fat again, and then fatter again. And then around 2012, after my divorce, I was at my heaviest. I was in a really bad state, mentally and physically. And I decided, look, I need to figure this out. I went on the journey of discovery, did courses, programs, hired coaches, mentors, Because I realized that, look, there are people out there that are losing weight and keeping it off. And I figured it out. I cracked the code, as you might say, right? And the rest, as they say, is history. Over the next few years, I refined what I now call my minimalist method program.
And the minimalist
And
method program is the cracking of the code of how to keep it off once you get it off, because I think that's the biggest challenge that people have, right? Losing weight, even though it's difficult, it happens, and then especially when you do like a keto-esque diet or like a carnivore type diet, and then you go a week. Let's say you're 2 weeks in. Within 2 weeks of coming off, you bring back all the water weight plus everything else. So, is that what the minimalist lifestyle is? Is keeping it off?
So we call it minimalist method because we don't require you to go to the gym. We don't require any cardio. We don't require you to cut out carbohydrates or curries or kebabs. We will teach you how to modify those things to make them more healthier. And I use that term loosely because food can be healthy, but it might not be weight loss friendly. So this is a controversial one. Butter is healthy. It can be healthy, but if you eat excess amounts of butter, you'll gain weight, and it's a form of saturated fat. And if you excess saturated fat can increase your LDL, which is strongly associated to heart disease. Nuts are healthy, but if you're snacking on nuts all day, you'll gain weight, and we see that quite common amongst our clients who are told to have nuts because it's a healthy snack, and we get them off the nuts, or we reduce their consumption of nuts, and they start to lose weight.
Adam, one of the problems, at least I see with a lot of coaches in the past, and the reason why I like your content a lot better is because you kind of go back into the psychology of why people won't approach losing weight, that why they won't see a problem that exists. Like, what, in your experience, what are some of the main problems you're seeing among people of whichever age group you choose? Why haven't they started facing the facts?
There's a number of reasons, right? And one of them is in the West now, I think the perception of what a healthy weight looks like is severely skewed, probably more so in your part of the world, right, in the USA. So it's severely skewed. And then amongst Asians, we still tend to have this culture where even if you go to Pakistan, if you are holding some excess weight, you're seen as healthy, and if you look like me, you're seen as unhealthy. So we still have this confusion of what healthy body weight looks like. That's one. Then we have a culture of food, right? We love our food, and desi food is easily, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased, the tastiest food in the world.
It is.
Our foods,
hands down. Thank you.
Our foods are hyper palatable. Honestly, our food's like candy. You can eat so much of it, right? So our foods are hyper palatable. They're excessively high in oil. They're excessively high in carbs, and the combination of the two is terrible. So there's the cultural factor. Then there's the perception of what a healthy weight looks like, and then amongst Asian men, there's a massive ego issue as well. Right? Many times, Asian men, even if they I will get messages and I think to myself, my God, are we on the same planet? Guys who are 150 kg, right, will say to me, I'm not really overweight. Like, if you're not overweight at 150 kg, what is overweight? So there's this massive problem of denial amongst.
Wait, just so people know, in America, 150 kg is like 300 some pounds.
Yeah,
that's a big dude. Yeah, that's a big guy.
I mean, I share this. I mean, people are scared that I might end up sharing.
I mean, unless you're like 6'5" with solid muscle, that's a pretty big weight.
And in the UK, they're not even that tall. They're not as tall as Americans.
Yeah.
So I shared a screenshot once because people think, oh, no, he might be making this up. So I deleted his name, right? I hid his name and I shared the screenshot where this guy said he was 150. He's saying to me, I'm 150 kg. Because I always ask, the first thing I ask is, okay, what's your age, height, and weight, right? So then I can straight away I can tell what weight they should be, right? And so I've got this screenshot of somebody telling me, look, I'm 150 kg, I'm 5'10", and I'm something like 51 years old. I said, I know, like that's a train wreck waiting to happen.
So I think a lot of times, I would say that some of those people exude some crazy amount of confidence too. Because if you're 300 pounds and you think everything's fine, it's kind of cool that you can carry on with life like that. But
I think also people sometimes look at things different. Like they look at how they look at in clothes versus actually you healthy or not.
Yeah.
Right. Some people say, "Oh, I don't look fat in my clothes."
That's true.
Doesn't mean you're healthy, right? Because my gut's not popping out of my thing, but doesn't mean you're not healthy. You still got a lot of body fat on you, right? So, but I mean, I'm just saying, even at 5'10", 300 pounds. I can't see in what world somebody would think they're not fat, like they're not obese.
Yeah,
that's pretty heavy.
Well, you know what happens, at least when you're gaining weight. Sheikh Amr knows when I was after marriage, my first marriage, I gained like 60 pounds and just stopped caring. There was no motivation. Didn't feel like I need to look good, and I remember some of the coping mechanisms that I had. Like, I'm like, oh, you sneaky little devil. This is what you were doing. You were starting to wear sweatpants.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to worry about not fitting into clothes. You started not going to buy clothes, not looking in the mirror, and just start avoidance of what reality is. And I think that's one of these kind of underlying psychological problems that happens in many different areas of life. But when you look at least something that's so destructive to your health and your body and your appearance, people just don't want to see what reality is. It's like, you're pretty big, dude, and you got to do something about this because you're trying to wear like loose clothing and trying to mask it and stuff. And
that's what happened during COVID. A lot of people, like, we are all wearing really loose sweatshirts and loose sweatpants and gaining weight. And the other issue is like what he's talking about is discomfort. Yeah, there's so many levels of discomfort. Like you're saying, not wanting to look in the mirror excessively. Remember when you were a teenager, how much you used to look in the mirror? Yeah. But then you're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to focus that much because you don't want to think that you're going crazy either. Like, I don't want to focus this much on my weight or something. You're a crazy person, so you deny. But the other thing is that getting back in, you keep telling yourself, oh, you know what? I can get back in, bro. I just gotta sacrifice for a month, eat really clean for a month, and I'll get back in. But that never really happens.
So that's what I was gonna say too. Like, there's two aspects. Well, I mean, first of all, I think the biggest thing is it's not so much not looking in the mirror, because technically, let's be honest, there's some people who carry weight and they can still look pretty good, right? It's just more for the procrastination. It is. I'm going to get to it next year. That's
exactly what it is.
Like, it's the January 1st goals, right? Everyone's a fitness guru at January 1st, right? But then
for the first
nothing,
month.
Nothing happens, right? So, but the other thing I think it's more apparent the older you get, because like when you're younger, 18, 20, 25, 30, right? Like, you can have that weight and not really feel the consequences of it. But you start hitting post 40, your doctors are telling you have high blood pressure, you have high cholesterol, you have elevated blood sugar levels, right? You start going through that, and they have a very real effect on your body. It's almost impossible to deny that you have a problem, unless you're delusional, right? Because you might think you're fine, but the doctors are telling you something entirely different. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
Sorry, Imran, you asked me. There's another major reason, or two major reasons why we have this problem, and the third one is a lack of awareness in terms of BMIs of over 23 in South Asians are problematic, and that's not really a lot, right? Because my BMI currently, and I have abs, and with abs, my BMI is 25.9, right? But obviously, there's a whole controversy around BMI if you're holding body fat and muscle and stuff. So if you've been training for a number of years, your BMI will slightly come off, be skewed, and mine is skewed, right? But if you've never been training and your BMI is even over 23, you're at a higher risk. 6 times the risk factor amongst South Asians is you're 6 times more likely to suffer from heart disease, diabetes, and strokes if your BMI is over 23. And you're likely to suffer some of those consequences in your 30s. And that is getting worse, right? It used to be most men would get diabetes, South Asian men would get diabetes in their 40s. Now they're getting it in their 30s. And many of my clients who are medical doctors are saying that this now seeing men as young as 18 with diabetes.
Wow.
Like this was unheard of 15, 20 years ago. But this is becoming increasingly common. And it's because the food environment's changing. There's more fast food outlets. You have to move less to get your food. Like before, even to consume, I mean, if we went back hundreds of years, like to get organic chicken, right? You'd have to grab that chicken, feather it, cook it, and in the process you'd burn a few hundred calories, and then you wouldn't get this massive calorie bomb as well because it's healthy, nutritious food. Now you press a button on your phone, and 5 minutes later, you've got a 2,000 calorie feast delivered to your door. So the lack of movement, the food, more processed foods, more high palatable foods. So, our health condition is worsening. Now there's a fourth element that is unique to Muslims, right? And that is, Allah has willed for me to be that way.
It's qadr, brother. It's qadr.
Qadr Allah.
Yeah. So I get that quite a lot. And the more religious the brothers are, the more of those excuses they make. Qadr, and then the other one is, I've heard this as well, and this is really, really, it's laughable. It's like, I don't want to focus on my physique because it creates arrogance, and I'd rather just be humble.
The guy can't even make sujood. He's worried about his physique. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're praying salah in a chair at 25 years old and you're worried about physique? Like, I mean, at least, at the very least, you should be at least strong enough to pray your salah and walk around and do. And this is the funny thing. Like, these are the people talking about jihad fi sabilillah. We have to go do this, stuff. And you guys are like obese, like beyond control, right? Like, but let me ask you about something else. So I've read in certain places that there also is, to some degree, a genetic component. And I don't mean that genetically that you're just going to be fat. I mean, maybe there's some correlation there. But in terms of meaning genetic predisposition to, cholesterol, diabetes, and blood pressure, it's like a triple factor that Western Asian, including Arab men, have. Like they're just plagued by this genetic thing where they're more likely to have these three combinations. And I think ultimately that also plays into how much the diet, but also I think they release things like cortisol and stress levels in the body that make you retain body fat, like things like this, right? So what degree of it is genetic?
So, yes, certainly there is a genetic component, right? And I always say that I'm a fatty trapped in a slim body, right? Meaning I have all of the struggles that overweight people have, right? And there's a term now that's coming into effect called food noise, right? I'm hungry a lot of the times, right? I have to consciously stop eating, right? I have to consciously avoid food, and it's a conscious effort all the time, right? And they say when you go on the Ozempic and these GLP-1 suppressors, it actually quietens that food noise. You stop thinking about food. Your hunger levels go down. And you get satisfied much quicker from a small amount of food. Now, my wife's family were all slim without making much effort, and we have this conversation because she doesn't have any of these issues. And I made a post on social media a few weeks back, and I said, she'll bring chocolates and crisps into the house for the kids, right? And I'll tell her you need to minimize that because I'm going to consume it. Right? So she said, don't consume it. She goes, I don't consume it, so just avoid it. And it's like, for me, it's a battle to avoid it. Like for her, it's not. It doesn't even cross her mind. For me, I have to actively try and avoid it.
I'm the same way, man. Like when it comes, how some people, I envy people that could just open like one package of chocolate and have one little piece and put it away.
Yep.
That would never happen for me. Like, oh, there's a whole chocolate bar here. I know guys that will take a bite and then just pack it back up, put it in their pocket,
never understood
and like
it.
a week later I have another bite. Like, what? Do you?
I never
That-
understood it.
For me, I can, it's like water management in the lota. I have zero water management. Like it's the same thing with food. Like I will just eat if it's there. I'll eat it. Like if I, especially like sweets. Like who doesn't like sweets?
Yeah.
You know, right? But to your point though, brother. Like I have this cousin of mine. He's been the same weight for like 45 years, and he doesn't have to worry about what he eats. Actually, he has to try to gain weight.
That's crazy.
No matter how, right? He can just not and when he lifts, he's massive, right? And I'm like, yo. So when growing up, we're like, oh, you just got a high metabolism, bro. You got a high metabolism. I wish I had a high metabolism, right? But at the same time, I look at that now and older, I'm like, hey, I think there's certain things that you can do. Yeah, I believe that there is definitely people have different metabolic rates, but I believe there's ways that you can increase your metabolic rate, right? Where foods you can eat, at certain exercises that you do. Like for example, you mentioned walking to get your food, but I think on the contrary, even walking or brief exercise after you eat your food, even like a 10-minute walk, makes a huge difference on how you process your foods, right? Like things like that you can do to boost your metabolic rate that we just don't learn about. We just kind of just say, oh, it's just my body chemistry is different. You know, my body's built different than this guy. I got big bones, right? Like I got a wide chest, right? Yeah,
Husky.
like I'm healthy. You know, healthy. Healthy, bacha, you know? Yeah, you know, like
No, I mean, there's just going back to the terms. I think one of those problems that I hate is using these cute terms to describe being fat. Just say you're fat. That's why I'm very blunt about it.
Discomfort.
Yeah, like because you're using these nice little terms to couch this
Lessen
big
the hit.
Yeah, lessen the hit and try to make people feel less bad about themselves. Like you somebody has to hit you with reality. Like if someone truly cares about someone, that at least my philosophy is, and I know it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, but if you care about someone, you're going to tell them that they have a problem, and especially if your loved ones are facing a problem, they're going to have to hear from someone, right? It's either and it's not going to be a stranger. The stranger's not going to come and tell you like, hey, this is a problem with you. That's just not part of etiquette, right? The people who love you have to tell you like, hey, there's a problem happening here and you're not taking it seriously enough.
No, there's enabling, right? Like, so I agree with you 100%. The biggest changes, even if it was for a small stint of time, when people made me feel really uncomfortable about something, I really like, okay, I got to change it. Look, it feels really bad for 3 or 4 days. It sucks. You think about it before you go to sleep, but it helps you. Later on, you thank them. Yeah. And you think about all the turmoil that you've been through, like every single one of us. If you were to ask yourself the change that came about after that turmoil, would you go back and erase that situation that happened to you or that discomfort? You would say, you know what? I probably wouldn't, because look how much I've changed. If you're really looking at it honestly. But I think we have to have...
One of the moments after I had put on that 60 pounds, it was almost a year and a half. I was kind of like in this disgusting zone. And my brother had come back from India after, he studied with you in India, in India. And he came back. He's like, holy cow, you're fat. He just literally said, and I felt so bad. I didn't know how to process that. And I'm like, and I remember just being so mad about it. But then I realized like, okay, he's right. It's not like he was being mean about it. He was just, in our family, we're very blunt with each other. We just say it to our face, and you see us go back and forth all the time. We're just very like blunt about whatever. However, like if my mom sees you, sees me coming back from a ski trip on the mountain, I'm very tan. She's like, you're black. She just says it. What happened to you? and I'll be like, okay, I'm on a mountain, and there's a lot of sunlight that's hitting your face. It's hitting bouncing off the snow and stuff, and you're explaining to her. But like people don't understand that. Like you have to be kind of part of certain type of Indian culture where
the demographic is what counts.
Where you're really blunt. It's a lot like black people. In black culture, it's really direct. Like they just say it to your face. That's how at least my mom raised us. We're just really, really direct with each other, and I think one of the problems is at least the people who are able to face this reality, right? They're the ones that I find a lot more successful. Reality plus people who are able to deal with truth, reality, and the second quality I see them in them is the ability to implement a daily activity, the discipline. So discipline in itself, in doing something repeatedly every day.
No matter how boring it is.
No matter how boring it is, no matter how much they don't want to do it, them building or having this mechanism of, hey, I need to incorporate this activity in my schedule, no matter what happens. Bro, I'm still like getting there. I'm like, I thought I was pretty good at it, but Ramadan came and I've worked out maybe like twice since Ramadan, bro. So I gotta get back on it.
Yeah, it's those resets that happen.
Yeah.
That like, for example, like, you know, for me, like, sometimes I'll be hitting gym heavy, right? But then I'm like, I tell myself, oh man, I got so much going on with work. You know, you guys know I just have so much going on, right? I am busy. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not. But I always carve the way to do it. But then it's like, man, you just tell yourself, oh, you know what? A couple more months of this work, it's gonna settle down. Once I get that thing open, I'll go back right to the gym. But the problem is that once you lose that rhythm, it's just it's so hard to get back. Because I think I remember reading something. It was like 50% of working out is just getting to the gym, just getting. I mean, in this case, just getting started, right? Like putting your shoes on, mentally getting there. You know, it's like, and I try. You know, it's funny. Some of us even try to even do it in a way where it becomes easier because we try to fool ourselves and say, oh, it's not a habit thing, it's more a convenience thing. So you build out this gym in your house. Like I've got a whole rack in my gym, like in the garage, and Sim has a whole thing, right? So even you've made it so easy where it's literally just a step, right? Oh, you know what? I'm going to buy a Stairmaster because I only go to the gym for the if I had it at the house, that'd be great. But you just, again, it comes back down to the habits.
Yeah.
If you don't, and one thing, I'm just going to say this. I've noticed personally that if you plan a workout session around any one of your salahs, it becomes more of an easy thing to do. For me, like I noticed that, hey, you know what? Before Fajr, I gotta hit this, or after the I'm not gonna do lunch because I work from home. I'm just gonna hit this out for 30 minutes, and you kind of build it. And for me, I noticed that I don't have to do a full hour. I don't have to do a full 45 minutes. I just need 20 minutes constantly every day.
That's smart.
That's
That's
enough.
very smart.
And
Yeah.
what other qualities have you seen in your most successful clients, people who've signed up to your program and you've been able to measure their weight loss for a significant period of time? What qualities do you see in them that separate them from everyone else? Like, what is it about them that made them better?
Interesting you should ask that, because I had this conversation with a client that I met in person yesterday. He went through our program and he was absolutely fascinated by it. And he's like, you know what? He goes, this isn't just a fitness program or a weight loss program. This is a personal development program. And I've heard that a few times. And he said, look, he goes, it's a complete personal development program in terms of you're getting a transformation, mindset, fitness, just generally becoming a much better person. And he's on that trajectory. You know, he's trying to learn Quran or study the Quran. He's trying to improve his finances and various other things. So we was having this discussion, and he said, look, he said, I told him the people that are the most successful on our program are the kind of high level CEOs, entrepreneurs, career driven guys who are already at the top of their food chain or doing really well. They're the most successful. And he said, do you know why that is? He goes, because they already have discipline. They just need to channel it in a different area.
Yeah.
And they just need the guidance and a framework to go off. Because he was saying to me, you know, he's got a strong affinity to Islam. And he was saying, look, why don't you bring more Muslimness to this or target Muslims more overtly? And I said, there's a couple of issues with that. One is I don't want to come across like I'm really using the religion to sell. And you might notice as well that when I mention religion in my posts, I often don't include the CTA. Right? So for those who don't know what CTA is, a call to action. So I don't make a sales post where I've used religion and then it's a direct sales post. Because again, I don't want to come across like I'm using religion to sell. But I will use religion to motivate people. But I try not to do that often because I will get the very religious brothers And the very religious brothers that I've had tend to be the least successful, right? And the ones that are successful in their worldly affairs, in their career and various other things, they tend to also be the most successful in fitness. And again, he was saying to me, look, he goes, most of the religious brothers are emotionally driven. And he goes, the other brothers from the other spectrum, he goes, they tend to be more logic driven. And they tend to already have, some form of discipline. So that's what I noticed, that people who are already quite successful are successful on the program. So when we have an application form on our program, and I'll say, or I'll use certain keywords to try and attract that type of individual, like a driven Muslim man, or I might use high achieving Muslim man. And sometimes people say, well, so is your program only reserved for high achievers and driven people? What about the person who needs it the most and he's not driven, he's not self-motivated? And I say, look, it's not because I don't want to help those people. It's just that they probably won't get the best out of the program. So I want it to be a win-win. For that reason, I try and stack the cards in my favor.
I feel that. You know what? I mean, I'm not in the same thing you do, but a lot of people come to me for advice about. So you guys know, some people who listen know that I'm really big on Muslim men being independent, like financially independent. So I push people to get it. And I come to a point where I realize if someone doesn't have it in them, I don't have the time or energy I'm not saying they can't change, but it's too much work to change. That person has to somehow come to that on their own. They have to want it so bad and hurt so bad that they're going to want to do something to change it. Like, I can't tell you, can't tell you how easy it is, right? It's just hard. Yeah, go ahead, brother. What were you going to say?
You can do it, but you don't want to have to go to their house and drag them out of bed and clothe them for them and brush their teeth.
Exactly.
You want them to turn up at your venue turn up, to show up. If you have to drag them to show up, it's not. It can be done, but you're not getting paid enough to do.
And then more than likely, you're not going to have longevity out of them. They might be really motivated. Those kind of people you have to keep motivated, right?
The people I always see a lot who are really motivated are the people who have their fat picture in a room or something. They literally keep a picture of them naked or something, or in their undies or something.
Part, yeah.
Well,
I don't
not necessarily literally naked, but in very exposing their fat, right?
Yeah.
And so that it hits them. Because think about it. When you get out of the shower, the moment you get out of the shower, you're already wearing a towel. You don't get to see yourself externally. Like that's not how you imagine yourself internally. When you are seeing yourself repeatedly on a daily basis, where there's this picture kind of stuck to your mirror in your bedroom or something, and you're like, this needs to change. That is in your face. Those people are almost always the most successful.
That's a good point.
Is that one of your ways to success? Just having a picture of yourself in your chuddies in one of your rooms or something? Because you lost a great amount of weight. I'm just wondering.
I think my vanity.
Because if you did it, I might.
No, I think I'm generally a very brutal person. I'm really hard on myself on every single thing, and constantly criticizing. I just feel like there's a nagging person who lives with me. You're being this, you're this, and you're that. So, but I like that person as well, even though it can be very annoying, but it just pushes me more. Yeah. It always is saying you're not doing enough, and your whatever goals you have is not enough. And so that's one of the things that kind of separated me. I didn't really need to put a picture of myself on the mirror, but I've seen a lot of people who have talked about this on other podcasts and stuff like that, where they've said, putting a picture. And it's the fundamental action behind that, or the premise behind that, is that you're facing reality. Yeah. Facing reality is so hard for people. Put aside weight loss, right? Whichever success you've had in life, or your lack of success in life, people avoid talking about it. They don't want to look at what exactly caused them to be in the miserable situation they're in. It's just an avoidance because it's difficult to deal with. Yeah. And only the mindset that's adapted to dealing with these harsh realities are the ones who are able to actually overcome it. Like you see a problem and you fix it, or either you see the problem and you bury it. You know?
Yeah.
Burying. I remember we were talking about the brushing under the rug before the podcast too. I think that has something to do with it too. The habit of brushing things under the rug.
So, Adam, I mean, we're talking about this, but I just want to. I think it's fair to note here that there are nuances to this, because like what he just described might work for some people.
Yeah.
Right. But for other people, it's like I'll just give an example for myself. Right. Like fitness goals will tie into, and I'm not saying this is right, but it kind of ranks below something else. Like, for example, me, I have a certain financial goal I need to hit. Like, I know I don't want to work past 50, right? But it ties into that because I'm like, hey, you know what? What good is all this money if I can't enjoy this money?
Yes.
So it's like, okay, they kind of complement each other, and then it kind of bleeds into itself. So it's not that I lack motivation, but I find motivation through other things that are priority to me. Hey, I want to enjoy going on a vacation with my family, my wife, and enjoy that time and not be in a goddamn wheelchair. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff where like, okay, well, what good is having all this? And I think that mindset, it becomes, for me at least, easier that, hey, I can do this. I can level up my financial game in all the ways that I can. It's kind of like a confidence booster. If I can do that, I can certainly do this.
Yeah.
All right. I can certainly push myself to do this. What's so different about that? Right? Like, and for example, like for me, I'll say, hey, if I can work for 15 hours a day, I can't go to the gym for 30 minutes. I can't spend 30, because I know if I have a meeting I got to be to that's going to make me $10,000, I'm going to be at that meeting for 30 minutes.
That's true.
You get what I'm saying?
Very
So
smart.
I think for people, I'm not to downplay what he's saying, but I think people are just nuanced. They're different. Their minds work different, right?
Yeah.
So maybe like talk about that a little bit, because I know you probably meet people from all different
All types of
backgrounds,
people.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Who are really successful, very just rock bottom, you know, who have no motivation, some who are motivated, right? So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we actually use all of those strategies. And as Imran was saying earlier, I have a picture of myself on my computer when I was really fat. And it's, you know, that's what I want to move away from. So people need clarity, right? People need a self-audit. They need to step back and take accountability of themselves and have a vision. So in terms of the picture thing, that also works for me as well, but that's one aspect, right? So I have a picture of me where I'm at my fattest, then I have a picture of me where I'm at my leanest, and sometimes we'll say that you should become your own motivation. And if you find, when you take that picture of yourself at your peak, and you look at that and think, wow, I want to look like that again, and sometimes that's even more motivating than the moving away, because people fall into two categories: people who want to move away from pain, and people who want to go towards pleasure or self-actualization. And we find that people who actually want to become their best version rather than move away from pain, they tend to do better, right? So the kind of future paces.
Yes. If you can...
so-
Just I think your mic is giving me a little bit, so the connection is getting a little, it's altering the sound of your mic. So if you want to just maybe check the connection.
No, or just don't move it around.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can keep it stable? Sorry.
Yeah. Is that better?
We're hearing a
little bit-
humming noise right now. Is it close to some kind of computer or something?
No, I've not changed. I've not moved anything.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
It's better
Yeah,
now.
whatever you moved just now.
Yeah, whatever you just did right now is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can leave it resting on your desk.
Yeah.
It might be too far. Then.
If it's inconvenient,
Like that?
if it's not too inconvenient, maybe you may have to lean forward a little bit or move your chair up. Sorry for the inconvenience, brother. But
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah, much
Yes,
better.
sir.
Yeah.
See, so let's get, if we can get into the meat of the matter, because you just gave us a teaser of telling fat people like myself that to keep the weight off, you don't have to do cardio, you don't have to exercise, and you don't. So, it's a really good pitch that you did, because now you got me hooked, and these guys have been talking about all these things. I'm like, all right, when's he going to tell us? So, can you just give us a little bit of a hint?
Yeah, so I'm happy to tell you, because the biggest thing that people struggle with is support and accountability. It's not even the information. We're living in an age where you can ask ChatGPT, hey, make me a plan, and they'll give you pretty much everything you need to know. But people still need support and accountability and community, right? So those are the main things. So earlier, the brother was saying about about genetic components. So we find that the biggest contributor to weight loss is actually daily activity. It's not even going to the gym, it's daily movement. And in terms of genetic component, if you can understand how your genetics work, you can work around them, right? So people who struggle with their weight, they tend to have higher hunger signals. So they have more ghrelin production. They have uh, reduced leptin sensitivity. So that's the hormone that controls the how much they can eat, and ghrelin is how hungry they are. Leptin controls how hungry they are, and ghrelin controls their appetite. So people who struggle with their weight, they tend to have uh, higher ghrelin levels and lower leptin levels. Then they tend to have the part of their brain, the reward center of their brain, tends to respond um, very strongly to food rewards.
Yes.
So, whereas if I have, I mean, I'm saying me, I'm of that same category, but most people, or people who don't struggle with their weight, when they have food, they don't get the same level of dopamine release as somebody who uh, struggles with their weight.
Mm.
So the people who struggle with their weight, they tend to get a much bigger dopamine release from food, right? And they might identify themselves as foodies. Um, so it's those things that determine people's weight. It's not so much their metabolism. Um, there was a study done where there was like 171 people. Half of them claimed that they had a fast metabolism, and the other half claimed they had slow metabolism. And they put them into this. It was a metabolic ward study, so everything was observed, all the calories, everything. It's one of the most gold standard forms of study, and in that they fed them all the same food. They checked their metabolism, and they found that um, actually, before I go there, I'll break down how metabolism is broken into four components, right? So you've got your basal metabolic rate, and that is the part that we can't control. So that's just the amount of calories we burn just to keep the lights on or to stay alive, right? For all our bodily functions. Then you have, um, and that accounts for about 60%. Then you have um, the part where is made up of your daily activity and movement. That accounts for about 25%, 20 to 25%. Then you have the thermic effect of food, right? And that is whenever you eat, you in the process of digestion, you burn some calories. So that's about 5%, and then formal training, accounts for about 5%. So when you go to the gym, you're only accounting for about 5, maybe 10% of your weight loss if you go for about roughly 30 minutes to an hour a day. So the majority of the controllable portion of your metabolism is daily activity. So if you can increase your daily activity and control the amount of calories you consume, you'll lose weight. And we teach you how to do that on the program. So you don't need to go to the gym. And the issue with carbs and sugar, it doesn't matter. If you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose weight. But like I said, with people's genetic disposition, they will be more hungry and they'll want to eat more. They'll go for more sugary foods or more hyperpalatable foods. And for people who struggle with those things, some of them foods can seem almost addictive.
Because the
So,
reward.
so the core of the program, it's really caloric deficit. Is that really what it focuses on?
Yeah, well, we try and get you into a caloric deficit by looking at your overall lifestyle, including sleep,
Right.
stress management, hydration, movement. And I would say a massive component of that is your mindset. Is, some of the stuff we spoke about is shifting your perspectives, getting you aligned with your purpose and value, helping you to future pace and see where you are. Because as we said earlier, most people have never stopped to take account of where they are right now and where they're going to be in 10 years. And they don't even know some of the health statistics that I spoke to you about earlier.
And for the daily movement, I mean, it can be as simple as if somebody doesn't, even if they're prone to injuries or they're recovering from injuries, just walking probably every day, right? Like a half an hour walk every day, and couple that with a caloric deficit, and they'll lose weight.
So I've read certain studies that like and I don't know if this is true, but they say that 80% of weight loss is really the food that you eat, and like a 20% is probably just the activity that you do.
I would argue it's higher. It's about 90% is what you eat.
Okay.
Wow.
So given that, do you recommend? Because I think the biggest challenge with that is everybody says, okay, yeah, low carbs, more meat, or whatever, less sugary stuff, less oils, right? But really, I think if I'm going to be honest about it, right, I think it has to be down to a science, meaning somebody has to really, and I found this that people that actually don't eat out as much, who eat more at home, they tend to lose weight. And people that measure their foods, they lose weight. So coming to that, right, do you recommend applications like MyFitnessPal where you can scan foods and really track? Like, do you encourage that behavior, or is that too tedious of a thing to do?
Tedious. It's too tedious. Hardly any of our clients. I mean, I'd say maybe about 5% of our clients do that, because with our program, it's flexible. We work around you, your preferences, and your lifestyle. And we've had I'd say about 5% of our clients who want to do that, so we help them with that. The majority we don't. The majority we use a process I call Food Taqwa, where we look at food selection, portion sizes, controlling portion control, food selection. And for the viewers and listeners, they can find, I've got a link, they can message me after the show. I'll give them a link where I explain the Food Taqwa process. It's a 9-minute video. So once you apply that with everything else, because there's a number of components and they have to come together and work synergistically. And as I was saying earlier, you can have information, but that information has to be structured and it has to be layered, right? If you try and do something, there's some things that you would do much later on. And if you try and do that earlier, it won't work. And there's some things that you need to do earlier. If you leave that too late, it won't work. You need to kind of scaffold the knowledge and behaviors, mindset, lifestyle. It all has to kind of scaffold on top of each other, right? Sometimes you might need something from this area, but you have to be able to identify that. Okay, this is the area that I'm lacking, and this is the area that I need to focus on. This is the smallest hinge that's going to open the biggest door for me, and that's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, and without giving all the secrets, let's just go through an exercise. Like, I'll be the guinea pig, right? Like, I'll give you my lifestyle. Yeah, I mean, like, for example, I work, let's say I want to lose 20 pounds. I work on average 15 hours a day sedentary for the most part. Like, I'm at a computer desk. I don't really eat too much in the morning. Like, I know my metabolism is slow, but I intentionally don't eat in the morning. So I won't have a meal till about afternoon. But again, that meal is pretty crap. Like, I mean, it's because I'm just hungry and I'm eating something. Usually it's going to be something fast food because I need to order quick and eat, right? So, and I probably won't eat till about 8:30. And I might snack me, but really, I won't really snack in between. But maybe just before bed, I might snack just something small just to keep my, stomach full. But that's about it. But usually my lifestyle is at the moment is pretty sedentary. I don't have a huge appetite. I don't eat a lot of food. Like I say, the average caloric meal I take in is probably under 1,000 calories, right? But it's not the most healthy calories, but it's at under 1,000 calories, right? So just think of it like a burger or something like that. Maybe a little bit of fries, and that's about it. Like maybe a diet soda, whatever. But it's not like actual. Like I'm not eating like 2,000.
Yeah, you're never a big eater.
Yeah, not a big eater.
You're not a big eater.
So for a guy like me who's super busy in the daytime, and I definitely don't have time to prep my food. Like little meal boxes, right? What would I do? I mean, I'm not gonna make a lunch, right? So, yeah.
Well, first of all, I would ask you to we have our own app where you take pictures of everything that you eat.
Mm-hmm.
We record your sleep, your hydration, and your food intake. As in, we don't look at calories, but we look at what you're eating.
Yeah.
So I would need to be absolutely certain that you're actually consuming around 2,000 calories or less. And by looking at your food, I could tell you.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. All right.
because I don't know what's your height?
5'7"?
I said, okay, same height as me, right?
Yeah.
So your calorie requirements will be roughly about 2,500, right? And
Yeah.
to lose weight, you'd have to be under 2,000, right? Now, again, I do that without counting calories. But if you consume 2,000 calories, you'd lose weight. So somehow, one way or another, you're not consuming 2,000 calories.
Hmm.
And I guess the other thing as well, you're very sedentary, right? So
Yes.
we need you to move. And I know that, if you're working 15 hours a day, it's difficult. But we'll find ways around it. We'd find ways around it, right? So one of my clients not too long ago is called Rafat. He's a very successful tech entrepreneur. He was the same. Like, he's super busy. So what he started doing was he started taking calls whilst walking. I'm similar to yourself. I work about 8 to 10 hours a day, and I work from home as well.
Yeah.
So what I try and do, I try and go for a walk in the morning, about 7 in the morning, and then I will try. I try and do a lot of my work walking. Sometimes I'll go to the gym. I'll be on the treadmill, and I'll take two phones with me. I have one in front of me, and the other one I'm taking notes. So I'll be watching videos and taking notes on the phone. But with some of our clients, what we've asked them to do is get like a walking pad, and whilst they're doing their work, they're walking. So something like that, I think, would work wonders for you. So you're still getting between 8 to 10,000 steps a day. If you combine that, and we looked at your food, we managed to control your portions, make better food selections, you would lose weight. If you don't have time to prepare your food, I mean, at most you need 15, 20 minutes a day, right? In the evening, or the night before. If you couldn't do that at all, I mean, again, I would try and encourage you to see that if you spent 2 hours in the week, you'd save more than that during the week. And literally, you can prepare a week's worth of food, or at least a week's worth of lunches. So even if you got one meal that was, a good meal, right? You could do that. I've got a video somewhere where I'd show you that I do that in 20 minutes, right? 25 minutes. I actually record live where I'm preparing like 15 meals in 20 minutes.
Wow.
So if you couldn't, even if you couldn't do that, then I would say you can use a meal prep company where they just deliver the food. You tell them.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah, like would you recommend using a meal prep company? You know, I mean, because I'll be honest, man. Like I'm not trying to sound like I'm some super busy. I mean, like important guy, but I am really busy. Like I'm just like even moments that I'm like from the moment I wake up 5:30 in the morning, my calls are starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on these things till like 7 p.m. at night, right? In between the things I got to do, right? And sometimes I got to run to the store, other things like this. So I'm literally and if I don't know if you guys can see this, but my days are booked out in blocks. Like I literally give people 30-minute timelines in my day, right? Because I literally can't like I'll just I don't know if the camera can see this or not, but like literally these are like my daytimes. Like so I'll have like I don't know how do I show this? Oh, you can't. Okay. Anyways, but point being is like I literally and otherwise if I could have like an hour and a half in a day or an hour where I could just say okay, you know what, I'll go quickly whip something up. I'm sure I could do something like that, right? So I was just gonna ask you about that, like meal prep, or in the beginning of the week. Like
there's a Muslim meal prep guy in our area too. He's a recent revert.
Nice.
And yeah, he does halal meal prep. He goes to Fatima brand guys, and
so those are generally dependable to use, Adam. Like I mean that if they,
they deliver to your house and everything. Yeah.
I don't encourage them because I really feel that it's worth learning, getting into the habit of preparing your food. I think it's a worthwhile investment. And what I would really do is though, what we do with clients is we try one thing out, we look at the data, and then based off of that and having a proper one-to-one conversation with you where it's a coaching conversation, right? We would really get to understand the physical and mental hurdles and see together how and if we can work around them.
Yeah.
Right. So we'd say, we try one thing, and if that's not working, we'll review that, and then we'll make a decision based off of that data and try something else. By the second or third week, I mean, usually by the first week, right, most people, they're quite happy with what they're doing and they can do it. But if one thing didn't work, then we'll try something else, right? And if that doesn't work, we'll try something else. And by the third week, we'll have a process and a system that's working for you.
That's awesome. Great. No, I mean, and just a side note, like I just started cutting off that one meal in the morning every day, and I already see benefits of it. Like I just started cutting it off. I feel like it's just excessive, and I started doing it after Ramadan. I'm like, hey, because my days started getting very busy just prior to Ramadan. Like before, I had like 10-hour days, and then started getting very busy afterwards. But just I stopped eating in the morning, and I've already seen the benefit of it. But I just wanted it was a great exercise just to see kind of like how you would go through the mindset of it, and yeah, I think I accepted the reality that it would be quicker if I did other things, but even at the very minimum, I would probably steadily lose weight just skipping that morning meal. It may not be as quickly as I want it to be, but I'm more worried considering the longevity of it. Like long term, it's sustainable for me to skip breakfast, right?
Yeah.
You get used to it, and already Ramadan built the habit of not eating that in the morning, suppressing that hunger pain, right? So I figured that if I can just keep that up throughout the rest of the year, right? What's the harder part here? That's kind of.
Can you take calls whilst walking, or can you do work whilst walking?
Can I do work that's
while walking?
while walking? Oh, yeah. Actually, so what I'll do is, so it's kind of yes and no, because sometimes I have to reference things on my computer. But what I do oftentimes is when I'm doing these conference calls that I know don't need that, I'll pace around in my room, because it's already a natural habit for me to walk back and forth. So I don't sit on those calls. Like I try to walk back and forth. It's about maybe, I think the room size is about maybe 20 feet back and forth. I just keep pacing until the call is done, or I have to get back to the computer. So I started doing that. So I brought one of those under the table treadmill things where you can just without the handles.
That's all right. They would work. The other thing you can do as well is, like, during your day, try and integrate 5 minutes of walking, or even when you need a break, right? And then the other thing is, like, if you're going to the supermarket, you park the furthest parking space, right? You guys call them parking lots. Right? So and if you asked me 10 years ago when I was a hardcore gym bro, I would laugh at those things, right? I think, that's never going to work. But they work.
Yeah.
If you stack them, they add up. Like if you're commuting to work and you're catching a bus or a train, maybe not a train, it might not work because you're too far, the stations are too far, right? But if you're catching a bus and you get off one station earlier, or you are bored one station later, and you get that extra 10 minutes, all of that adds up.
Sure.
Right. So that's one way. But I wanted to touch on metabolism. I think I started speaking about a study and then I didn't conclude it. Right. So in terms of your metabolism, in this study, they found that these people who claimed that they had fast metabolism and those that claimed that slow metabolism, when they were fed the same amount of food, or when they were overfed, the people with a fast metabolism, they started becoming spontaneously active. So, and they managed to burn the extra food that they consumed just by spontaneous movement, like pacing and things like that, in a 3 foot by 3 foot room. And then the people who claimed that they had slow metabolism, when they were overfed, they became more sedentary, and they went to sleep and just became more sedentary. And what was fascinating was the same two groups of people, they responded completely differently to being overfed, right? And they found that within that same confined environment, one group managed to burn off 500 extra calories compared to the other group. Now, in a free living environment, sometimes people's metabolism can be about 2,000 calorie difference in a day, right? And them 2,000 calories don't come from the basal metabolic part, i.e. the part we can't control. it comes from activity, the part we can control. Now, the genetic component of that is that the people who are slim, they do this without thinking. And again, the people who struggle with their weight, they become sedentary, again, without thinking.
So did you say that those people in the room that they were in a 3-foot room and they were able to get active?
Yes.
I mean, what were they doing in a 3-foot room?
They started pacing, they started fidgeting.
Oh, okay. So just basic, but like they were getting anxious, pretty much.
Yeah. And then the other thing you'll notice that people, and when I first learned this, right, about fast metabolism, slow metabolism, again, there's other studies that were done where they followed people throughout their life, people who had a fast metabolism, people who had slow metabolism. And towards the end, they found that people who had a fast metabolism gained weight, and people who had slow metabolism lost weight based on their circumstances. So based on their environment. So there's a concept of epigenetics, right, and gene expression. So when somebody who has a fast metabolism is put into an environment where everybody around them is sedentary, there's fast food, or they in a job where that's sedentary, they gain weight. And you can take somebody who is genetically predisposed to gaining weight, you put him in an environment where people are active, where he's got an active job, where there's healthy food, and they lose weight. So ultimately, the biggest determinant is the environment and not genetics.
What do you say about what do you say about people? Or I don't know if you got a chance to research this. There's an influx of health influencers that say that vegetables actually are supposed to be, eaten at a minimal because vegetables have this defense mechanism chemically within them, where they're meant to ward off anybody eating. Basically, they have a defense mechanism like chemicals.
Yeah, oxalates.
Yes, oxalates. Yes, thank you. So when you eat it, your body actually, it causes inflammation. It's actually not good for you, but it should be taken into small portions. Basically, you shouldn't eat like a huge salad on a regular basis because those oxalates are actually causing damage to your body and causing inflammation.
That's only if you're predisposed, and not everyone's predisposed. So to avoid that, you wash your vegetables and you cook them. Right? When you cook them, much of that is kind of denatured and it doesn't have an effect. Right? And it's not all vegetables. Right? It's only some.
Got it.
So when you cook it, especially the way Asians cook it, right? You kill everything, right? Yeah. So it's not a concern. It's only if you're already predisposed, say you've got some sort of kidney disease, something like that, and it's certain vegetables like spinach and green vegetables, they tend to be higher. And
I see.
Again,
because the reason why I'm saying that, hey, somebody was saying that. I mean, one thing I realized about the carnivore diet crew, some of them are really militant and they're like very anti-vegetable. Some of them, and they try to preach that vegetables are actually meant to not consume because they give off these chemicals to actually damage the consumer. So when you're eating vegetables, it's actually really, really harmful for you. So you should only do this elimination type diet where you have only beef and only chicken and occasionally eggs and veal and venison, whatever, just animal protein. And so it's crazy how you can derive like health benefit from all types of diets, but the danger is of becoming very militant towards that type of dieting too, right? So you have to find that balance.
Yeah. So what I would say, whenever you come across that argument, simply ask them, what does the outcome data tell us, right? Because we've got stacks and stacks of systematic reviews and meta-analysis showing that people who consume vegetables live longer, have better health. So despite the theory and whatever mechanism we might use to explain a particular fear, we have to look at the outcome data. And we know with absolute certainty right? And again, science works in you know in shades of grey, right? But there's an overwhelming amount of data to show us that vegetables are good for our health. Now, yes, some people may have an autoimmune disease, um, and for them, vegetables can be problematic. But that is like not 1% of the population. And even for them, they need to go on an elimination diet and slowly introduce one or two items at a time
Hmm.
till they find out which are the foods that trigger them.
Yeah.
They still don't need to eliminate everything, um, unless it's some really extreme rare genetic condition. And even with with fruits and vegetables, they have certain phytonutrients that you cannot find in animal foods.
Hmm. So, just two questions I have. Obviously, as far as elimination diet, I don't want to get too philosophical about this, but first question is, and I have a follow up. First question is, elimination diet. There obviously has to be a base, right? So, what are you using as a base when you eliminate everything? What are you consuming? Is it like a animal protein source that you're starting off with, and you're eliminating everything else? Like, how does that work?
What I'd recommend on an elimination diet is get is normally low FODMAP, right? So most people tend to have a problem with FODMAP, high FODMAP foods. So you can get apps that give you categories of foods that are most triggering. So I would say first get rid of all the most triggering foods, and if you're still getting inflamed, you're still having reactions, then the next lot, then the next lot. That's one way where you layer kind of down, right? You take the most triggering foods and layer. The other is, like you said, you can go straight to animal foods, right? And get rid of all the symptoms, and then slowly start introducing other foods in, and then discover, what the trigger is. So you can do it either way. You can do it.
Yeah, I was just looking at FODMAPs as far as the type of digestive discomfort you get based on certain types of foods. So that's what you would do. The next portion of my questioning, as far as elimination diets are concerned, is darn it, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, how do you feel about protein bars? Because I got some really good protein bars I just handed to these guys.
Yeah,
they're called Bear Bells.
It's freaking amazing.
Have you tried them?
And I've not got them in the UK. I've never seen them.
Oh, show them the
Here's the wrapper.
No, here, give it to me.
Oh, here. Oh, there you go.
This is the cookies and cream one, and I did a lot of research on actually finding a good protein bar. This is it's
20 grams of protein. Calories are 200 calories.
Open it. Tell me that's not the best protein
bar.
Zero
sugar. It is. I'm telling you right now, this is better than the Quest. But 15 milligrams cholesterol, sodium 75, sugar, alcohol, so 5 grams. So you get 20 grams of protein with zero sugar and zero. What was it? Total carbs is 20 grams of carbs. Fibers.
Any thoughts on protein bars?
So I would only consume them as convenience or in place of chocolate bar. So I would never have them just every single day as an addition, right? Because to me they're still quite calorie dense, and they are still somewhat of a treat stroke candy, right? Ideally, you want to stick to much more better food protein sources: chicken, fish, lean beef, and there's various other sources of protein, right? So protein bars only for convenience, and only if you're craving chocolate and you're gonna have it in place of that.
Better than having
so let me ask you something. So since there's no, like, they try to limit the sugars in these things, right? Does it, even though it's not the same sugar though, but does it trigger in your mind the same insulin response that you would get if you're consuming sugar?
You're talking about sugar alcohols like erythritol and like.
I mean, this is sugar. But I'm saying the fact that it's sweet could trigger, even though it's not the same sugar. But I'm asking him if it would trigger the same insulin response because it's not. It's perceiving it as sugar.
I mean, claims have been made they do. Again, studies have been done and they don't. And if you go on TikTok now, there's quite a lot of diabetics. This has become a trend where diabetics consume this stuff, and then they take their blood sugar, and then
Yeah.
a couple hours later they test it again, and they show that nothing happened.
Yeah.
Right? But we said that anyway. But now there's lots of diabetics that are actually demonstrating it.
Okay. So quick question, coming back to the vegetables, right? Like I mean, we've always been told that certain vegetables you can never go wrong with. Like for example, eating broccoli before bed is great because you have to work to break it down. Your metabolism speeds up, right? Like so, if you want to lose weight, high fiber, greeny, vegetables are always good to eat to keep your body in that high drive mode. Is there any truth to that?
I'm yet to find anybody who's ended up in hospital from consuming too many vegetables, or gained weight, or had high cholesterol, or anything like that from consuming too many vegetables.
Yeah.
I think it's there may be the odd chance, but I think it's extremely rare, and it's not something for us to really worry about.
Good.
So what do you usually suggest for people? Let's just say they don't want to go to the gym. A standard, let's say a 45-year-old South Asian male. Let's say he's 5'10". He wants to lose about 40 pounds, and he can't go to the gym, or he doesn't want to go to the gym, for instance, or he doesn't have the motivation to. Other than just calorie restriction, because sometimes we think something's low in calorie, or it's you just in your mind, but then it's actually, when you actually calculate it, it's not actually as low as you think it is. So the essence of my question is, what's a bulletproof way of somebody who's not initiated to calories, who's not able to eye calories and know if it's high or low in calories, and they're not really able to go to the gym? What's a bulletproof, foolproof way of them still consistently, slowly but consistently, let's say losing 5 pounds a month, of just doing a little bit of extra without being too tedious for them to get some motivation?
Join our program.
There you go.
No, it's like I said, ideally keep a food diary, right? Keep a food diary. Ideally a photographic one where you can actually see what you're consuming, because many times people think they're consuming 1,000 calories or 1,500 calories, and they're not. They're consuming a lot more. So, but then when they're working with us, they've got our expertise. We can tell them that you're going wrong here, right? But if you don't have that, you would have to gain some knowledge of the calorie contents of foods, right? And you don't, like I said, you don't have to weigh food or count calories. I don't do that. I did that once in my life for about 4 or 5 weeks. It worked, but I've never done it again, right? And I still managed to stay lean all year round. So when you take photos of your food, you can really see how much you're consuming, right? And if you're honest with yourself as well, you can see the total amount you're consuming and the amount you're consuming in that one go. So there's a couple of ways you can kind of bulletproof it. One is using a portion plate. So whenever you're having a plate, right, try and make half your food, half your plate, fruit and veg, or fruit or veg, right? A quarter protein and a quarter of smart carbs. Sorry, when I say protein again, quarter lean protein, right? And a quarter of smart carbs. And when we say smart carbs, that'll be carbs that are slow to digest, whether that's oats, brown rice, white rice, similar in calories, but I find that brown rice it's not as palatable, meaning when it's not as tasty, you eat less, right? So that's another thing. That's another little gem, right? When food is when food is hyper palatable, you consume 30% more. So just by reducing the palatability of foods, you by default end up consuming 30% less. Right?
I see.
So if you make up your plate, half fruit and veg, quarter lean protein, quarter smart carbs, you fall into a calorie deficit.
Yeah,
Do
I
that
think
3 times, even 3 meals a day, you'll fall into a calorie deficit.
you heard of like.
Other-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were
There's
done.
another one you can use where you can use your hand portions, right? So when you consume carbs for a meal, if you're consuming 3 to 4 meals a day, you have 2 hand cupfuls of carbs, lean protein, the size and width of your palm, and if you're going to include fats, 2 thumbs. That's it. Right? So that's another way that, because everyone's palm sizes are different based on your height and weight, right? Or based on your height. So you'll adjust to you as an individual. So that's another way. But like I said, it's not just about knowing that information. It's about your mindset and various other things as well. There's a lot of components, and I believe they work synergistically. Um, it's never really about one tip or one piece of information.
Yeah, so you called it smart carbs. I don't know if you've heard of Tim Ferriss. He came out with this diet called like the slow carb diet. Slow carb, where it's just like you have like beans and like meat, and some vegetables. You can have carbs, but just only slow carbs. And I never understood. I never even got a chance to research. But is that something that is it because it's low in calories, or is it because it's the way it's digesting? That was my second question. Is it because beans are lower in the calorie level based on its weight, or is it because the way it's digested in your body?
It's the way it's digesting, because beans are not low in calories. Beans are quite high in calories, right? But they contain fiber, right? They contain high in fiber, so therefore, when food contains fiber, quite a sizable portion of it it doesn't get digested anyway. It just comes out, right? So there's calories in food, and this is the problem with calorie counting as a whole. There's actually a massive problem with calorie counting, and if you can do it accurately, it works. But there is a massive problem with calorie counting, is that the calorie that's on the label isn't always the amount of calories that's bioavailable.
I see.
So potatoes, based on the way you prepare them, you can reduce the calories or you can increase the calories. Sometimes when you boil potato, you can increase the calories by twice the amount, right? Because when it's uncooked, or when it's cooked in a certain way, it contains the fiber is insoluble, meaning your body can't digest it. When you cook it a certain way, it makes that fiber more digestible. So now there's more calories available to your body. Almonds, for example, are high in fiber. So almonds, roughly about 20 or 30% of the calories are not available to your body. So the calorie counting has some inherent problems, and with Tim Ferriss's thing, it won't be about the amount of calories. It'll be about the way it's digested.
I see.
But these foods like almonds would, even though they're insoluble, but they would keep you fuller for a long period of time, right? Because they're heavier on the fibers. So you could eat a handful of almonds and be kind of substitute a meal if you needed to, and not have the same.
I would still opt for a food that is more higher in volume and lower in calories, because ultimately our bodies, our stomachs, right? As soon as the food hits the stomach wall, it sends signals to your brain to say you've eaten, and that takes around 20 minutes, right? So the more volume you can have, because like you can have you guys are going to call it chips, right? We call it crisps in the UK. You can have these big bags of chips, right? And they're like 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
And right after that, you can eat something else, right? Whereas you try and consume 2,000 calories of vegetables, fruit, and meat, you'll be full for the whole day.
Yeah, definitely. No, that makes sense. Yeah, because even I think the same is true for sweets, right? Like you can have a piece of cake that's like 500 calories, and you can eat a full meal right after that. Like it's just no problem, right? Or a second slice, right? So, I mean, yeah.
Do you ever have any people who just sometimes they go to a party or something like my big weakness is pizza, Sheikh. If someone brings,
I think every Chicagoan loves pizza.
Yeah,
a good pie.
A good pizza will ruin my diet immediately, and I'll starve myself the next day to try to make up for it, or maybe for the next couple days at least. Well, what do you suggest people do if they fall off the wagon?
Good question.
Right. Avoid pizza parties. Right? So here's the thing I would do. All right. I'm going to give you an absolute golden tip here. Right. This is completely contrary to the advice most of the coaches will give you, and that is, most people will tell you, like, before you're going out to eat, and if you know that you're going to eat decadently, right, starve yourself. Don't eat all day and then go out and enjoy yourself. I'm going to tell you the absolute opposite. Eat as much as you can before you go out.
Yeah.
Right? Eat your normal foods. Right? Eat your veg, eat your lean proteins before you go out. That way, when you go out, you're not absolutely starving. Right? So
you must not go to desi parties because they're gonna forcefully feed you. I mean, they're gonna get offended if you don't eat that biryani they put on your plate.
What's gonna happen is, right, you're gonna eat and you're gonna get full a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And when you feel full, right, or at least comfortably full, you won't feel deprived. Whereas if you starve yourself all day and then you go out to eat,
Oh yeah.
you won't be able to control yourself.
That's true.
And you're going to easily overconsume way above the calories that you need.
Yeah.
Right? And I found that, and I've experimented with this with clients and myself many times, that if I starve myself all day, when I go out, I'm just going to go crazy, and I'll have far less control. Right? So I'll overconsume, then I'll want to follow up with dessert and chocolate and everything. Whereas if I've eaten before I've gone, I'll go out and I'll eat and I'll get full and I will no longer feel deprived. And if I hadn't eaten, what happens if I try stopping early? Well, first of all, I will struggle to stop early, right? Because we teach this concept that you want to, or you should only eat to 80% full. The hadith says a third, right? But let's be a bit more generous here, right? Because most people will never achieve that, right? So let's go a bit further. Let's go to 80% fullness. And the Japanese do this actually as a practice, which is crazy because this is a Muslim thing, right? And so we say go to 80% fullness, or if I was to stop you every periodically whilst you're eating, check in with yourself and say, okay, where am I now on a scale of 8 to 10? Sorry, 1 to 10. As soon as you start hitting that 8, stop. But when you're starving, you can't do that. When you're starving, it's like well, it'll take you. You'll eat so much food before you start to feel like you're at a 7 or an 8.
It's already too late.
Right? You'll have consumed over, your amount of calories that you wanted to consume, right?
Yeah.
By the time you hit 7 or 8, and then even if you do stop, you feel deprived. You feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah.
But if you've eaten before you come, so eat before you eat, you can stop at 7 or 8, and you won't feel deprived because you're like. Because there's this thing, as humans, that food is only tasty when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Like,
you have disdain for it after you're full, yeah.
Yeah, after you're full, it's like...
Yeah, but let's say all else fails. Let's say all else fails and you starve yourself before you go to this dawat and you've eaten. How much of an effect does like a 20-minute walk or a half an hour walk have on mitigating the amount of calories you just consumed?
Depends on how many calories you eat.
No, I'm saying how much of a mitigating factor is just taking a walk, a habit of taking a walk after you eat. How much?
You're going to burn 150, 200 calories, right? It's not going to be much. A slice of pizza is like 350 calories, right? So
maybe where you guys are from.
And, yeah, I mean, ours is like 500 for like a deep dish. Like, it's a pretty big slice. But plus, I mean, what he's saying is that when you're hungry like that, you don't put the limit to what you would normally eat one slice. You'd probably have 2, then you'd probably have a little dessert afterwards. Maybe then you gotta drink a can of soda with pizza. So you've got like 3,000 calories.
Exactly.
And then you walk in for 200 calories. You're still like, it doesn't mean anything.
If you eat before you go, even if you do some damage, the damage won't be as great. Like you might go over a little bit, 500, 400 calories if you go over. But when you haven't eaten, you've got hyper-palatable food.
Yeah. And
it's super calorie dense like pizza. Because pizza, to me, on a scale of junk foods, right, pizza is amongst the worst.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't believe in over restricting foods. So we tell clients, and I myself, I will enjoy it, right? I don't have this guilt thing, if I eat that food, I've done bad. I will enjoy it. But I will exercise caution, right? And I will see it as a treat food. And on a scale of, if you were to put food, like I said, you've got fried chicken. Like, I love fried chicken, right? But fried chicken is still has some protein in it, right? And it's still, to me, on the scale of junk food, right? Fried chicken's on the better side.
Yeah, but let me ask you about one thing too. And I was thinking about this whole starvation thing, right? Before you eat this big meal, But isn't there some truth to separating out your meals and like timing your meals throughout the day? Like, for example, more than likely at nighttime when you eat, you're more than likely probably not going to do much physical activity after you eat. It's very rare. Like if you have an 8 o'clock dawah, you're probably not, after you eat, you're probably going to talk with people. You're probably not going to, by the time you get out like 10, 11 o'clock, you're probably not going to do anything physical after that. Whereas like if you eat that, if you probably would have had that same meal like at like, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, you still had potentially 8 hours in the whole day to keep doing other things, right? So you would effectively keep your metabolism up, like, or maybe even less portions. So I mean, is there any truth to that, like while timing your meals?
No. So in terms health-wise,
Yeah.
it's better to stop eating a few hours before.
Mm-hmm.
Purely from a health perspective. Weight loss-wise, it doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
Right? And we learned that from, and I made quite a lengthy video on this actually. We learned that from, there's people who do OMAD, and they have one meal a day.
Yeah.
Right? And that OMAD has almost been termed, his nickname for it is now one McDonald's meals a day. Right? Because most people who do OMAD, they tend to be binge eaters.
Yeah.
And they tend to eat very poorly, meaning the reason they do OMAD is so they can binge on junk food late at night. And many of them people lose weight. They have a very unhealthy meal, usually very late at night, and they still lose weight. And I did intermittent fasting for 6 years, where I had 2 meals a day. And back then, this was 2014, 2013, 2014, I thought it was a miracle, because I used to literally not eat all day, eat about 4 p.m. because I had to go 16 hours before my last meal, right? So at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. I'd eat, right? I'd have a massive meal of rice and curry. Then I'd go to the masjid and teach there for 3 hours, come back and I'd get junk food, pizza, fried chicken, whatever. And I'd have junk food, and then an hour later I'd go to sleep. And I did that for years, right? And I got down to a 6-pack and I got absolutely shredded, eating junk food late at night. Right? So
what was that though? Caloric deficit? Is that why? Because you were...
Yeah, I was still in the caloric deficit.
And were you working out at the time too? I remember that's when the lean gains thing came out, right? Like the lean gains protocol.
Yeah.
So were you still working out? Obviously.
Yeah,
like,
I was still working out. Yeah.
Like
I was still working out.
Were you working out fasted or were you working out?
I was working out fasted because that was the most easiest time for me to work out.
But I've heard that, I mean, and I've done this Ramadan too, where I work out in a fasted state. And yes, in the beginning it might be a little difficult, but in the workout, I don't think I've had better workouts.
I agree.
Than in a fasted state. Like as far as I lift heavier, I'm, and I'll be honest, like yes, hunger pains are annoying, but I will say that if I intentionally, if I have a really busy day, I'm intentionally not eating, because for whatever reason, for myself, when I eat, it's not just a time, but I feel, I don't want to say lethargic, but I feel definitely slower if I'm eating a meal after the next hour afterwards. I definitely see a reduction in productivity. So I'd rather just push it through with the hunger pain, and after maybe an hour or two, it goes away, right? And then but then I can eat like at 5 or 6 o'clock, and I'm like, oh man, I'm done, and I'm just gonna eat, right? And I know but I'm jam packed. Like it was the most productive day because I got everything done, right? But I know if I eat lunch, like I'm losing an hour or two out of my day for sure.
I used to have that problem, right? Switch to eat a smaller meal, take the carbs out, or make better carb choices, but keep your carbs really low, and make it a meal of fruit, mainly veg and protein. And you see that doesn't happen.
So now what I started doing is when I need to do that now, and you're right, because what I would do is if I just starve, I would start binge eating at the end, right? Like after I finish eating, and I would
that's the issue.
Right, because I'm like, oh, I deserve it, and I didn't eat anything all day. I can eat all this, right? It doesn't really matter. So what I do now is I just got these protein shakes, like 0 sugar, 0 carbs, and I just slam one of those at lunchtime, and then it keeps me, until like dinner time.
Okay. Yeah. Generally, you find if you have a smaller meal, and it's mainly lean meats and or meat and veg, you won't get that slump. I know what you're talking about. I suffered from it for years. Yeah. But I'd never get it anymore. And only once or twice I get it if I have some junk food or I have a lot of carbs during the lunch. when I was working at the school one day, like the school provided lunch and they got like a kebab and naan. And
Oh man.
that day I went home after work and I could barely keep my eyes open. And I was working a normal 9 to 5 then, and I used to go to the gym in the evening. And I got home at 5 and I could barely keep my eyes open. I was like, what is going on? Like, why am I so tired? And then I remembered, oh yeah, it's that kebab and naan.
That naan, man. Oh, how do you say no to
And,
fresh naan? How do you say no to fresh naan? Like,
Adam, what's your favorite healthy desi food? One of our listeners is asking in the chat. He's,
I make air fried chicken with various spices. So those are probably my healthiest.
what about halim?
desi. Oh, I don't do halim.
Halim is
Halim is
terrible,
heavy,
bro.
Halim is heavy, bro.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Oh,
I'll
man.
tell you, there's something else that I enjoy. You know, raita.
Yeah.
Raita
Yeah,
is
yeah.
really healthy.
Yeah, right.
Raita is very tasty and healthy, right? So
Yeah, especially
raita-
if you use Greek yogurt to make
Yeah,
it.
but to be honest though, if you took desi food and you took a lot of the items, the rice out of it, and the
Yeah.
naan, like for example, if you had chicken 65, where you just dissected the chicken and added some vegetables and just ate that alone without
Yeah,
the
yeah.
naan, it's not a bad choice, right? I mean, I would say it's not. I mean, I'm sure the fried part's not great, but I mean, in terms of options compared to fast food options and stuff, it's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
not a bad deal as long as you probably cut those carbs. Am I wrong in that? I mean, just really because we really
No,
a lot of
you're
it is cooked
right.
meat.
But even carbs, right? Especially if you're training, the big problem happens is people are not moving, right?
Yeah.
And the carbs sometimes, like when we make pilau, we put oil in it as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's just carbs and oil, right? And or we overconsume carbs based on the amount of activity that we're doing. Like Imran was speaking to me earlier on WhatsApp, and he said, like, in Bangladesh, right? My family are from Bangladesh, right? And they eat rice, and more rice, but they're slim. They have no problem because they're working in the fields all day, right? And even if you go to Japan, China, they consume a lot of carbs, but they don't have a weight problem, because A, they're controlling the portions, B, they may be active, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you're-
Why is it that a lot of our moms and stuff, just women in general, they have a lot of difficulty because they're on their feet most of the day,
That's
doing
true.
especially housewives and stuff. Is there anything different physiologically with women when compared to men and the activity? Is their body just used to that activity and has kind of adapted, and they have to work a little bit harder in their workouts in
a great
order
question.
to lose weight?
that is definitely an issue of metabolic adaptation, because this is another reason why we say, look, you can't just rely on activity, right? Because especially certain activities, your body adapts to, right? And you start burning fewer and fewer calories. So, and especially when you start exercising a lot more, your body becomes much more efficient,
Yeah.
right? And you start burning fewer and fewer calories. So that's definitely one aspect. But the other thing that women don't tell you that I've noticed, because we've got women in my family, right, who struggle with their weight. They'll tell you, look, I'm only eating a little bit, and they are. They're eating a little bit when it comes to the rice and curry. They're not telling you the biscuits that they're having in between.
The snacking, the frequent snacking.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I've witnessed, right? some
Women love
family members-
snacks.
I mean, it's kind of hard,
They
right?
don't-
In the kitchen all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna eat something.
All right.
Yeah.
There's a few family members of mine, like, they struggle with their weight, right? And they don't eat massive portions, right, when it comes to the main meals, but they'll have a couple of 2 or 3 teas during the day, and with those 2 or 3 teas, they'll have 3 or 4 biscuits.
Yeah.
And in reality, or they say they have, I've only had 2 biscuits, and they have had 5. And
Tea and
if
sugar.
you,
And the sugar in the tea too.
No, but
and
also,
if you
yeah, go ahead.
someone like me, and you know how many each biscuits are. Each biscuit's like 70, 80 calories, sometimes more.
Osmania biscuits.
Right? And they've had 2 cups of teas or 3 cups of teas, and with each time they've had 3 or 4 biscuits. So they've consumed 1,300 calories just from biscuits.
Yeah.
Right? And as a female, for them to lose weight, they need to be under 1,500 calories.
Absolutely.
Or 12 calories. So if they've consumed all their day's calorie allowance just from biscuits, then they go eat a tiny portion of rice and curry, and they're thinking, I'm eating so little, why am I not losing weight?
Yeah.
So-
You know, one thing at least as well I've noticed is that the ratio of muscle to fat on men is much more. They have much more muscle, even if they're 30, 40 pounds overweight. They still have a lot of muscle, whereas at least women are much lower in the muscle capacity, and we know that muscle burns a lot more fat, right? Or is more energy efficient, right?
I was just going to ask you
using-
about that, like, because you know how you say you don't have to incorporate working out, but I was under an impression that the more muscle you have, the higher you're going to be burning through your calories, right? Because your muscles need that to function, right? So
True. However, do you know how little that is?
how little what is?
It's very little, very
Oh.
little. So you're only burning per pound of muscle tissue. You're only burning like 3 or 4 calories extra a day.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
So a lifetime of training, where you've added like 10, 20 pounds of muscle, will only increase your metabolism maybe by 200, 300 in a day.
Not worth it.
And you see that a lot of strongman competitions and powerlifters. You see they're always working out. You know, I know a dude who works out like twice a day, but he doesn't really watch what he eats, and he's like really overweight. But he's got awesome cardio.
Yeah.
He's really strong.
Well,
but he's very heavy.
that kind of comes down to. Do you remember back in the day, like your pictures of people in Asia? They were called the palwans.
Yeah.
They had like body fat, but they were like these wrestlers that would wrestle for like hours at a time, right? And anyone knows anything about wrestling, it's an intensive cardio exercise, right? But they're able to do it, but they got like this chunky body fat, and like they're
Yeah, strongman competitions require you to bulk up, and they're consuming enormous amounts of calories. They're burning enormous amounts of calories, so they have to consume stuff. They'll have like jars of peanut butter like next to them.
Dang, that's crazy.
Have you ever seen a Hathor talk about like how they? Yeah, they have like jars of peanut butter that are just sitting next to them.
Well, at the rate
while
they're trying to
working
grow
out.
muscle, they need that protein, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, the byproduct of that is you're going to gain weight, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be lean weight, but you're just going to gain, but you're going to gain muscle mass, right?
Did you ever see them cut after they cut?
Yeah,
Oh,
I saw
they're
that.
just
God, yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
They look like Conan, man.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah, they're like action figures.
In terms of metabolism, I want you guys to test this out, right? So prior to me learning about how metabolism works and the 4 components of your metabolism, I used to think, okay, well, you know, some people who are slim, they just have a really fast metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
But we spoke about one thing is that it's more spontaneously active. But I want you to observe something else, and this was fascinating for me. These people who claim that they've got fast metabolism and that's why they're slim, actually observe how much they really eat.
Yeah.
You'll see they skip meals, right?
Mm.
They don't eat as much as they think they do, or they will have a large meal, but then they won't have. Then the next day they'll skip 2 meals.
They don't snack.
They're very inconsistent with how much they eat, and they often don't eat as much as they think. Like for example, my kids are slim, right? And my wife's slim, and all our kids, right, all 3 of them in this house, right? They'll say, like, their mum will ask them, like, "Have you eaten today?" And like, "No, I've not eaten yet." It's like 7 p.m. You've not eaten anything. Why haven't you eaten anything? And they're like, "Oh, I couldn't be bothered," or "I forgot." And I'm like, "How can you forget to eat? Like, I'm hungry from the minute I wake up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can go first couple of hours, right? And then I'm just thinking about food, right? And I will control myself. I purposely try not to eat, but food's on my mind, right? Because I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas these kids, right, people with slow metabolisms, like, they almost find eating a chore, or it's inconvenient, right? And the other thing is that even when I'll take them out to eat, right, they're not excited by it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Whereas like we're like, oh yeah, can't wait to go to this place. And they're not really excited by it at all. And those are the kind of genetic differences.
Yeah.
And like I said, I started observing this. I thought, wow, these people who think that they've got fast metabolism and they're eating so much food, they really don't.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of clients who I've tried to help them put on weight, and it's such a chore for them, and it's such a challenge for us to try and get them to eat just normal amounts of food. like
Wow.
I would eat or somebody else would eat. And like just in the same manner, we'll get them like log your foods in our app. Let me see what you're eating, and they've eaten one meal, they've eaten 2 meals, and I've looked at the portion size and I'm like, bro, my children eat more than this.
Yeah, I mean, my cousin I was telling you about, who's just just always skinny. I've noticed that he'll eat a big meal, but he doesn't snack at all. Like there's no soda, he doesn't crave sweets. It's just pure like a big solid hearty meal. And he'll eat maybe twice a day, and that's it. But he doesn't snack in between. He's full from his meals. Like he's just completely full. Doesn't doesn't really feel the need to eat anything afterwards. Like I've never, I don't think I've ever seen him have a bag of chips.
Wow.
Like ever. Yeah, I mean, or a candy bar.
That's smart.
Never. No, I mean, I don't know if it's smart. I just think it's just the way he eats. He just doesn't feel the need to eat that.
Yeah,
he doesn't.
They don't. They just don't. Like I said, how can you forget to eat, or how can you not be bothered?
Yeah.
To eat? Like my son, even if he's hungry, he'll say, just couldn't be bothered. They see it as a chore. And my other son, right, he'll eat a massive meal, then he'll go to work tomorrow and he won't eat anything until he comes back home.
You know what? That sounds a lot like people who are taking Ozempic and stuff. They say you just forget about eating. Like you don't have that need, even though you need it. Your body, or you're getting a headache or something. That may be an indicator of being hungry, but they don't feel the need to eat similar to. And I'm wondering if that GLP thing that Ozempic is inhibiting is stronger in those type of people. That it's kind of being inhibited naturally.
It is. So you know, Oprah was talking about this. She said that, you know, I always thought it was just because, you know, if anyone, I don't follow her particularly, but, you know, I've just over the years have seen, you know, like, you know, her weight fluctuates, right?
Yeah.
It's just given, right? Being a spotlight. And she always was saying that, I promised I'd never take Ozempic and all this stuff, right? It's all about, you know, determination. And she ends up taking it, right? And she lost a lot of weight.
Wasn't she lying initially that she didn't take it?
Yeah. But then she realized, she made a massive apology because she said she realized under Ozempic that I thought it was just willpower. I thought it was just this and that. But truly, like, now I know it's to feel like what people who normally eat, right? How they feel like after they eat, I feel that way now, right? So I don't know how true that is, but I mean, there's something going on with the way that people, what triggers their desire to be hungry, right? Like some people, and I know it's, and here's the part of the problem. I think it's so nuanced because different factors can kick off. Like maybe some people, when they're high stress, they turn to food, right? Or just everyday habits. Like, you know, they just, you know, I don't know. It could be just like, you know, maybe they work out heavy one day and they do acquire more food than somebody else, right? They just wanted to eat more.
Some people are just struggling with like depression and stress.
Yeah. Well, so many different things that people turn to food for. And I think for some people, it's just easier to, like you said, maintain that. Like, and I do to some degree believe it's trainable. Like, I mean, for example, in Ramadan, we all train ourselves every day for 30 days not to eat, to suppress that and desire not to eat it, right? So it's possible, it's doable. But I think what you're talking about is that being able to consistently tell yourself, I'm hungry, but I don't need to eat right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's something, and I'll be honest, sometimes, I know it sounds weird, but feeling hungry is good.
It's good for you.
Like you feel a little bit lighter on your feet. You feel like you have a little more energy, but you know you're hungry. But you know, just knowing that you're hungry, you're not eating on purpose. That you don't need it. It's a different kind of motivation.
Yeah, and you know, I think there's studies that came out.
I agree. I totally feel that.
Yeah.
No, there's studies that came out. Like a lot of people, they consider food as like a drug, right? And I'll notice that, like you're saying about your son. One of my sons, he's ripped beyond belief, and he just doesn't like eating. Like we have to force him. And like I remember when I was younger, pizza, even though I was full, I'd want to eat more because you love the feeling. It comes down to feelings, right? And like that dopamine hit that we're talking about. My son, after he has a slice, like, I don't feel like eating. And he'll just go and start playing, right? Yeah. So it's that too. They don't actually. There's people who just don't get that drug hit from eating, and that's one thing I know is people who love eating because of it's like a drug for them. They're usually the people that are obese and fat. You know,
they associate that with sugar though, and carbs. Right? Like, I mean, sugar specifically, right? Where I believe the same effect of like taking certain drugs in the mind, sugar releases that same level of chemicals where like you just feel like it's dependent to this need to continue to consume it to feel good, like to feel better.
Same pathways for cocaine or like similar pathways for sugar. But you know, there's something that really, really cool thing that you said before I forget on your Facebook post, which kind of like summarizes a lot of this, where you said nothing tastes as good as lean feels, right? Nothing tastes as good as lean feels, right? And I think a lot of it as that motivation is when you start seeing a difference. Other things that you found pleasurable, those kind of get mitigated and just go on the back burner, and then you kind of focus more on the lean feeling because it gives you that, it substitutes that feeling that you would get from food, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I
So
think that was a dope.
let me ask you one thing too, with your client work though. So I think a big part of staying motivated for most people is, I believe, is not seeing results quick enough. Because usually when people see results,
They keep at it.
they keep at it, right? Like, oh, I'm seeing it, I feel it, I look better, I feel better, right? So what do you do with those people that, you know, they're trying their best, they're doing 90% of what they're supposed to do, but they're just not seeing the results that they see, and they're just unmotivated, right? They just don't really think, oh, it's not working for me, you know, the system's not, you know. What do you do with that kind of person?
So, if they're doing 90% of the things they're supposed to do, they will see results, right? The most our clients see results within a week, but we try and encourage them to stick it out for 3 weeks. We call it the activation period, right? We try and like force them to see a result within 3 weeks by doing, you know, as much as possible within 3 weeks, right? Now, the thing, so if they're doing everything, they will see results, because it's at the end of the day, it's just thermodynamics.
It's
So
thermodynamics.
that's it.
That's exactly what. Whenever people say, "Oh, it's not working for me," I'm like, if you're saying it's not working, you're defeating the laws of physics, of nature, of science.
Yeah.
Your body does not escape these laws.
You never seen a
You
starving
have
fat
to
person.
lose weight.
You never seen a starving fat person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it just doesn't work, you know? Yeah.
Now, the other thing you said, brother, is you said that when they see results, that motivate them. You know, the problem with people who always have been big all their life is when they sometimes the opposite happens. They lose 1 pound and they'll go off to celebrate and gain 2 pounds.
They feel like they deserve
And
it.
so we have to categorically tell them that, look, do not reward yourself with food, right? So one of the conditions that we do is we say, look, at the beginning of your program, get yourself a suit, a nice suit or a shirt that you want to get into, right? And hang that up somewhere. And along the way, when you achieve certain milestones, treat yourself and reward yourself, because that's really important to reward yourself, but reward yourself with things that are going to move you towards your goal, not away from them. So it could be a new pair of running shoes. It could be a new shirt, new pair of pants. Now, those things are going to move you towards your goal. Or it could be something else altogether. But do not reward yourself with food. Because again, people who struggle with their weight tend to reward themselves with food. And too early.
And so no cheat meals then.
At the moment, I'm going through a cut, right? And there's a restaurant that's open near us, right? And people are claiming it's probably one of the best Indian restaurants in the world, right? And guys, check it out. It's called Nawab, and they bought an iconic building, and it looks absolutely amazing. But it's a buffet, and they've got like maybe 100 different types of dishes in there. And I know when I go to buffets, especially if I paid, and it's quite pricey as well, right? So if I paid that money, I'm going to want to try everything there. Right? And I'm going to completely go against all of my principles, right, of Food Taqwa for that one day. So I've said to myself, when I'm absolutely shredded, I've got to my absolute goal weight and look, I'm going to go there and treat myself. And it's going to be decadent, you know, and it won't set me back. I might gain something, I don't know, but only then, not when I've got 20 kg to lose. I've lost 1 kg, so I'm going to go treat myself and gain back 2.
So you don't believe in cheat meals then, as like a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis?
With the mindset thing, I avoid language like cheat meals. I call it a refeed or reward. And again, you can have them, but you have to be very careful that they don't derail you. I never have a cheat day. You can have a reward meal, but again, in our program, we don't restrict anything. because we don't restrict anything, you can pretty much. We've had clients. You're gonna get shocked, right? I'll try and find this old post. Drop me a message, and I'll try and tag you on an old post where one of our clients literally had junk food and through the entire program, and he lost a kg a week on average. Right? And but he calorie counted, right? He was a calorie counter. He calorie counted everything, and he would calculate that I'm gonna eat a doner kebab and some chicken wings and whatnot, and this many calories, and he did everything, and he lost on average a kg a week. And if you looked at his food, you'd be horrified, right? And like you could eat like that and lose weight, but he did because he calculated it all. So we don't restrict anything. Like I pretty much have a packet of crisps and a chocolate every night, right? So because we don't restrict it, sometimes when you over restrict, your desire for that thing increases.
Yeah.
It's like when you tell a child,
Oh yeah, it does.
don't press that button, right? And don't press that button, or don't think so. Your desire for that thing increases even more, right? It's like when you say to people, don't think of a pink elephant, and they think of a pink elephant. Back in the days when I was into the whole dieting thing, I'd have a list of foods, like, I can't eat this, and I can't eat that, and I can't eat this, and I can't eat that. And all day, I'd be thinking of all those foods on that list. To the point, I would feel like suffocated. I'd be gasping for those foods. But now I know if I really want to go and have some fried chicken today, I can eat it.
Yeah.
So guess what? I don't desire it as much. And even if I did want to eat it, I go and eat it. And we teach that concept that we teach a number of strategies, right? And depends on your circumstances and which strategy you need, right? So if I'm craving something, I'll give it 5 minutes, go for a walk, do something else. If I'm still craving it, I'll go have it, but I'll eat that thing mindfully. So I won't like, oh, it's forbidden food. I've got to eat this. Eat as much. I'll eat that food mindfully. I'll savor it. I'll enjoy it. And when you eat mindfully, you'll see that you can stop sooner. So I'll have the fried chicken, but instead of having 4 pieces, I'll have 1. And as soon as the craving's gone, I'll stop. And I can do that, and I can still be in a calorie deficit for that day.
Got it.
One of the things I want to let people know before we leave the show is just because you're calorie counting in the United States, there's a 20% error margin allowed in the amount of calories that's reported on labels.
That sucks.
That's a huge margin. So what I do is I just add 100 calories to everything. 100 calories to whatever thing I'm eating. I'm like, okay, well, margin of error, just assume that you're eating 100 calories more than what's actually being reported. And that can actually possibly help put things a bit better in picture into figuring out why you might not be losing weight when you're even calorie counting and making a diet journal like Adam was suggesting. There's
20% is a lot.
20% is big.
So basically, like 200 calories is 240 calories.
Imagine, so if you're having a 2,000 calorie diet and you're going based off of the labels, what's 20% of 2,000?
Shit, like 200 calories.
We have
You're no longer in a
That's a
calorie
lot.
deficit.
400 calories right there.
400.
So 2,400 calories you'll be eating.
Yeah.
It's a possibility, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And if you're 5'7" like me, your maintenance is about 2,000, 2,500. So you're only 100 calories off. And if you're 100 calories off a day, even if you maintain that, you need to maintain it for about 6 weeks before you saw 1 pound loss.
yeah, Adam, you have any parting thoughts before you wrap up the show?
Nothing specifically.
Did
Check
we-
out my stuff. Inshallah, benefit from it. The Food Taqwa thing is really, really good. It's something I coined. I have a video on YouTube where I did where I kind of really lay down the law with Islam and health. That's a very interesting video. Do check that out as well. And feel free to get in touch, ask me any questions. I'm more than happy to try and help you.
All the links for Adam's content are in the description below. Be sure to check it out. Thank you so much for joining us today, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was good.
Listeners, make sure you like and subscribe. Throw a comment in the comment section below with your thoughts related to the show. What do you eat, and what are your goals for losing weight? And is there anything we missed out on to show that maybe you could add? Thank you all for coming on. We'll see you all next time. Assalamu alaikum.
I want their leader brought here. I want him brought to me. I want the revolution crushed.